If you live in the US like me, it's likely that you're addicted to caffeine. So what? Nobody's dying out here from caffeine addiction, but have you ever wondered what your life was like before you were addicted to this drug? Many addicted persons claim that they could never and would never want to get off caffeine. Is that true? Is there no benefit whatsoever to quitting caffeine? I quit caffeine for 6 months. In part, I quit caffeine to hope to answer these questions, but that might not even be the real why I did it. More on that later. In my research, I found that there are at least 51 benefits to quitting caffeine. We'll talk about the benefits in this review, but alas, this video is a review, and reviews rate things. Often they rate things with stars. So to start this review, I have to tell you that the experience of quitting caffeine for 6 months, in my opinion, receives a mere 1.9 stars. If 1.9 stars sounds preposterous to you, if it stirs up any emotion in you at all, it should. Firstly, because giving anything a star rating is excruciatingly hard. But secondly, the astute listener will realize that I haven't yet told you what the highest possible score for this star rating system is. To rank Olympians, we use a scale from 0 to 100. To rank movies on the IMDb, we use a scale of stars between 1 and 10. To rank books on Amazon, we use a scale of stars between 1 and 5. But this experience is no book, nor is it any movie, nor is it any athlete. This is an experience so core to my own being that during this review, I will explain that I did not feel like myself. This experience is so core to my being, it is in some sense what makes me, me. So this experience requires the most basic ranking system possible. The most basic ranking system, which I believe is the star ranking system, which ranks things between 1 and 3 stars. This leaves us with an amazing task. How can we possibly rank something on such a scale? A 1-star ranking requires such an experience that is so wretched, so vile. The 1 star is reserved for horrible, detestable things, unspeakable things. Are we to say that giving up caffeine is so disgustingly wrong that it's on par with things like hell, solitary confinement, and Batman v Superman? In order for this to be true, then there would have to be no benefits whatsoever, but we've already admitted that there are at least 51. But a 2-star is perhaps even worse than a 1-star rating. In order to achieve a perfect 2-star rating, something has to be so unremarkable. There is nothing really good to say about it, and there's nothing really bad to say about it either. The whole experience is totally blah. 2 stars is reserved for the fundamentally adequate things in life. If 1 star is bad and 2 stars is adequate, then what even could ever be 3 stars? The precious envied 3-star rating can only be given to something that is good. And this good, not the basic understanding of good, not the finger-licking good that you get at KFC. No, this good, the biblical good. As in, after 7 days, God looked at all that he had created and said, "This is good." 3 stars is only befitting one such thing that is so good that only God could have made it. Every rating system has its flaws. This one has its fair share. Even so, I was able to determine the correct rating for this experience, giving up caffeine for 6 months to be 1.9 stars. In order to understand how I've come to this conclusion, we have to understand my history as far as it concerns caffeine. Going to a special store, and I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to get at the store. I'm going to reveal that later. That's called inductive storytelling. It's when I give you a few bits of information and I don't give you the whole story until it gets revealed at a later time. Before I was addicted to coffee, I didn't know how to work a drip coffee maker. We had one at work, a used bookstore. Weirdly, a lot of us who worked there didn't drink coffee, so the coffee maker wasn't always on. It was only on sometimes. When someone felt like they wanted coffee, they took the initiative to prepare and brew the coffee. Once, my manager asked me to make the coffee, and I distinctly remember the panic that I have when I arrived to the coffee maker. I opened the uppermost lid of the coffee maker, and I saw a brown, gelatinous looking substance in its upper deck. I didn't know what used coffee grounds were. Aren't coffee grounds in the coffee? I thought. This is a video of instant coffee where the grounds are just mixed into the coffee. That's what I thought coffee was. Why is there a weird brownish black gunk in this compartment? What am I supposed to do with this? What does one do with coffee grounds when they've been made into coffee? I was completely unsure what I was doing, but I decided to throw out this porous lump into the garbage. And thankfully, I guessed right, and no one ever knew that I had never made a pot of coffee before that day. Before I was addicted to coffee, I didn't have a concept of a morning routine. I would wake up at the last possible moment before I had to walk to school, listening to basic, emotive indie music or metalcore music on my 30 gigabyte iPod video. This was the first iPod to enable the user to play videos on its tiny screen. I was once showing my friend a music video on the 2.5-inch digital display. I was probably showing him the music video for Love Rhymes with Hideous Car Wreck by the Blood Brothers, which I bought on iTunes and which they have since revoked from my account. What the heck, Apple? I thought it was supposed to be the cloud. I thought my digital purchase was backed up for life. I still have season 2, episode 9 of The Office, but somehow my Blood Brothers vid got deleted? Anyways, I was so smitten by the ability of this nanotechnology to be able to show my friend a music video in the lunchroom at school that when some random lunch-wielding student passed by curiously looking over our shoulder, I overzealously announced that this is the new iPod. It has video. They hadn't been looking over my shoulder at all. They didn't care at all about the 2.5-inch H.264 codec HD video on my iPod. They were just looking for a spot to sit, and my crazed outburst made them shuffle off to the entire other side of the auditorium. If it wasn't obvious, I didn't have a lot of friends at that school. My only really good friend was my 30 gigabyte iPod with video. Every morning I listened to it, and every morning it coaxed me into living. I didn't need an addictive substance like coffee to do that. I don't remember the first time I had coffee that led to my addiction to coffee. I didn't just decide one day that I would start to be addicted to caffeine. It's not as if I just woke up one day and was like, you know what sounds good? Being addicted to a brown liquid that doesn't taste very good. At that point, I didn't even know that coffee could taste good. My dad didn't drink coffee, and my mom did drink coffee, but she always drank it black, and I thought it tasted too bitter. The fluids that I ingested up to that point in my life were 50% Kool-Aid, 40% milk and water, and 10% sugary soda. I didn't have the palate for something in my mouth that wasn't decadently sweet. I didn't decide that one day I would start being addicted to coffee, no. But I do know what was going on in my life when I decided to take up caffeine. I had just started going to university. I was working 3 jobs. I worked at Hot Topic, I worked at Super Suds, and I worked at Half Price Books. On top of all of that, I was engaged to be married and writing and recording a full-length album with my band. And if that wasn't enough, I also was a volunteer youth leader at church. I don't know the day that I picked up coffee as a daily ritual, but I know that it was during the time that all of this was going down. And I know I wouldn't have been able to do it all if I didn't have caffeine. My wife and I got a coffee maker as a wedding gift. It was the cheapest coffee maker available at the Bed Bath & Beyond where we registered. It was the Hamilton Beach 12-cup black switch coffee maker. In our one-bedroom apartment, the smell of coffee filled the front window to the patio door, all 750 square feet filled with the addictive scent every morning. Even if the neighbor would be up, freestyle rapping with his friend in his car right outside our window at 2 a.m., I'd have the comfort of knowing that I could count on coffee in the morning. Do you want to hear what's going on?
Yes, I do. Tell me.
So I bought caffeine-free coffee at the store.
All right, let's try that.
I don't know if I did this long enough, but it does look quite dark. I was afraid of that.
That's for real.
Like the look of it, and looks are important. Like if this was too light,
It smells like coffee.
It would throw me
off
too much, right?
Looks like coffee to me.
Dude, it smells like coffee.
It smells like heaven.
Like the smell.
Yeah.
Okay. Try it.
Yes. I'm excited. It's really good.
It's tasty.
It's delicious.
Mine feels weak. Very weak. Is yours weak?
Hold on.
Between the time that I got married and about 6 months ago, that is about 8 years, I was dependent on caffeine. I would go through a very predictable cycle. For a few days or weeks, I would drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning. At some point, I would start to go for a second cup on days that I felt extra tired, or when I felt like I needed a little boost to get a little bit more work done. Then I would start drinking 2 cups of coffee every day and going for a third caffeinated beverage, maybe an iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, or a double shot on ice from Starbucks. I would gradually increase my caffeine consumption until I sensed that it wasn't working anymore. It just didn't seem to be able to get me to that high place where I could frantically do all my work. Then I would quit coffee cold turkey for a week or maybe a month until I got back onto the drug again, restarting the cycle with 1 cup of coffee in the morning. Ever since I started to become addicted to coffee, I started to try to quit it. I knew that I needed it more than I wanted to need it, and I knew that it had some negative effects. The first time I remember consciously quitting caffeine was for a test, a university exam. I figured out that if I didn't have caffeine, I would be less nervous and more focused on exams. So whenever I had a test or an exam, I would quit caffeine for the day. This worked so well for me that I convinced my wife Kristen to try to do the same thing. She was nervous because she had to take an exam for Spanish. I told her just don't drink coffee. I convinced her to do it, and at that time, she thought that it did help. There were plenty of times when I'd quit caffeine in the past. I knew that coffee had positive and negative effects on my body, so I decided to try and quit it for real this time. But why? I mean, really, why? Why did I decide to quit caffeine? So this is straight up chicory root granules that I boiled into a coffee-like drink.
A coffee-like slurry of chicory root.
Well, first of all, let's smell it. Oh, that's the gunpowder right there. You smell that? Huh.
All right, I see where you're going with the. It's very like, yeah. Now I get what you're saying.
You get the gunpowder? Yeah, gunpowder.
Yeah, it's a little metallic.
I've quit caffeine probably between 10 and 30 times over the past 8 years of being addicted to it, but I don't even count one of these attempts at quitting to be real. I never intended to give up caffeine for real. I never took it very seriously. In any given moment of weakness, I would easily give in to the temptation and go back to the drug. I knew I would go back to it eventually. This time, I wanted to give it up for real. So in some sense, I guess the answer to why I wanted to quit caffeine is I've never done it before. And that is true. But even that isn't a good enough why. I hope that by the end of this review, we can realize the actual why. So I went cold turkey off caffeine. The first few days I was tired and I had headaches, and this totally went away after 2 or 3 days. In the previous 2 videos I've made about this process, I talked about the problems that I had in giving up caffeine, so I won't go into detail about those things here, but just to briefly summarize, the first problem I had was that I was unwittingly consuming caffeine products without even realizing it for the first 3 months of being off caffeine. The second problem I had was that I would wake up at 3 a.m. and not be able to get back to sleep while being off caffeine. These problems have largely gone away. The former because I researched and eliminated the products I was using that had caffeine in them. The latter because I improved my diet in ways that I'll talk about more in this video. If you perchance want to see the details of those situations, I will link the videos here. But with that being said, withdrawal from caffeine is supposed to take a few days or maybe a few weeks. In my experience, it took 3 months to actually get to a place where I actually felt normal. I remember 2 months into this experience, Saturday, September 10th, my friend Mike asked me to help him move to his new home. I said, of course I would help him. He didn't have much to move. There was a large leather couch, there were a couple of dressers, and a bed. This was the quickest move I'd ever been a part of. When we finished the move, Mike asked if he could buy me lunch, and I said yes, so we headed to Beefaroo. On the way to Beefaroo, Mike asked me how quitting caffeine was going. I told him I thought it was going well, but I still didn't feel like myself. I told him that I felt less anxious about random things like work wouldn't stress me out like how they may have when I was on caffeine, but I still had this sense that I wasn't myself without using caffeine. I was entirely someone different. More than anything, I think this speaks to the idea that our habits are who we are. We are not only what we eat, but what we drink and how we drink too. What I do in a daily basis in some fundamental sense perhaps is me. When I take that away, I become less me. It wasn't until I had been off caffeine for an entire 3 months that I could completely once again feel like myself. After 3 months of living as a stranger in my own body, I was once again and finally me.
I'm outside in the beautiful Rockford, Illinois. Let's try this coffee.
This is a video of me that I made in order to review a particular kind of coffee. This particular kind of coffee came from the Woodman grocery store. It came in whole beans. I would grind the beans at the grocery store in the store grinder. The woman, Sarah, who worked for the distributor, abhorred my practice of mixing her precious beans into the store grinder. Mixing her perfectly lightly roasted Ethiopian beans into this dirty store grinder. I was just too lazy and broke to buy my own grinder. I bought these beans because they were organic and fair trade. Those are buzzwords meaning, for one thing, that coffee is going to be more expensive for me, the consumer. On the other hand, maybe they're better for my body. And they are better economically for the farmers who grew the beans. These labels do make me feel better as a consumer, but mostly I just like the way the coffee tastes. I decided to venture out into a crowded parking lot in order to deliver this review. I guess for some reason I felt like this would be a good location to deliver this review, but in case you've never experienced this kind of situation, it can be very distracting and awkward if someone else happens to be loitering in the particular parking lot that you chose to shoot in. And someone always happens to be loitering in the particular parking lot that you choose to shoot in. The reason why I'm showing you this video now is to prove that I like coffee. In fact, I like it so much that I'm willing to embarrass myself in public to prove that fact.
Getting the little bit of the brightness. It's a nice coffee smell.
Now, it's time to understand the benefits of quitting caffeine. The 51 benefits of quitting caffeine. For the sake of brevity, I only listed the first 51 benefits that I could think of off the top of my head. I listed them off the top of my head in the Notes app on my phone. It took me maybe 1 hour to list 51 benefits. I actually didn't even mean to list 51 benefits. I opened the Notes app on my phone and wrote at the top of the note, how many benefits of quitting caffeine can I think of? Can I think of 34 benefits? I wrote down the number 34 for no reason other than it sounded like a big number. Well, the answer is yes. I can think of 34 benefits to quitting caffeine. In fact, I can think of almost double that in 1 hour. Even though I'm telling you it was trivially easy to think of 51 upsides to quitting this drug, you may be tempted to write in the comments that I had to stretch to come up with 51 benefits. The fact is that I started this list and came up with 51 benefits off the top of my head in one sitting. But to prove to you that I'm not stretching to come up with 51 benefits, I wrote an additional 49 benefits that I won't even speak of other than to just flash them on the screen so you can read them if you want. If you're still not convinced, that I have to point out that the 96th thing that I listed as a benefit of quitting caffeine is you don't get jitters. Jitters is such a common side effect of using caffeine that if I was stretching to think of 51 benefits, I definitely would have put getting rid of jitters in the original list of 51 things. Therefore, I wasn't stretching to think of 51 benefits to quitting caffeine. These just happened to be the first 51 benefits that I rattled off. Benefit number 1. I have a consistent energy level while working. 2. I have a consistent energy level while not working. 3. I have less anxiety about projects I'm working on. Don't worry, I'm not going to just list off the 51 benefits without explaining the significance. I wouldn't do something like that to you. At least not in this video. Benefit number 4. I have no back pain. 5. Properly hydrating. 6. Save money at Starbucks. 7. Save money at Woodman's grocery store. 8. Eat better. No skip meals. 9. Don't burn self pouring pour over. This requires some explanation. I always used to make pour over coffee. This is an old method of brewing coffee where you pour boiling hot water into a cone holding coffee grounds and a filter directly over a single cup of coffee. There are plenty of contraptions sold to achieve this feat. One day I bought the cheapest conical coffee pour-over device I could find. It was a $3 plastic cone I bought at a grocery store. Daily, I would pour boiling hot water into this thing, and it brewed perfect coffee every time. Every time, that is, until one time. Every day, I would pour boiling hot water into the conical basin on top of the coffee mug. On some mugs, the $3 plastic cone fit perfectly. On some mugs, it fit barely. This particular time, the mug I had chosen for my morning brew was not the perfect size. Even though the pour-over contraption was wobbly, it didn't bother me. I'd done this before. It had always worked before, but this time was different. As I poured the boiling hot water and it mixed with the precisely finely ground beans, with my free hand, I accidentally grazed the top of the wobbly conical device, sending boiling hot water and coffee grounds careening onto the fragile, bare flesh of my left wrist. Since the boiling hot water was mixed with coffee grounds, it didn't brush off as simply as hot water would. I would have to take a full 3 steps over to the kitchen sink in order to flush the boiling hot water and coffee grounds off my now blistering flesh. Even though I took good care of the wound, I still have a scar to this day. Even though I practically never use it, I still have the $3 pour-over. Benefit number 10. Save time by not having to make coffee in the morning. 11. Save mentality by not having to rely on a ritual. As I'm writing this script, I'm supposed to be in my office, but I'm in my bedroom, sitting on my Papasan chair with my feet up on my bed. My wife accidentally took the keys with her this morning. I have no way to get to the office. Even if I could get to the office, I have no way to get into the office. I bring this up because going to the office, much like having a cup of coffee in the morning, is a ritual. There is nothing wrong with rituals, except when they don't work out, i.e., I couldn't go to the office today, or I couldn't get a cup of coffee today. Then they trick you into not being able to get anything right that day. Today, for example, I wanted to go to the office to write this script. I was convinced that if I was able to go to the office, I would be able to have more clear thoughts, I would be able to write for a longer period of time, and I would have less distractions. Now that I can't go to the office, it would be easy to excuse myself from writing this script. It would be easy to blame that on not being able to fulfill my ritual. The only reason I was able to overcome and am writing right now is because I use mental and physical tools to get myself into a place where I'm fine and quite possibly better off working from home today. That's why I say it's a benefit to not have to rely on caffeine as a ritual. Benefit number 12, have regular BM without coffee's jolt. Coffee makes me have a BM. I know this is too much information, but it's just a true biological fact of life. If I don't have caffeine, it's harder to have a BM. You may think this is a drawback to quitting caffeine. It is, but it also helped me to realize that I needed more fiber in my diet and I needed to drink more water. I would never have realized these dietary deficiencies if I didn't have to eliminate caffeine. So it's a drawback, but it's also a benefit. Benefit number 13. More focused. It is obvious to me how much more focused I am without caffeine. When I'm on caffeine, my mind frantically wanders from thing to unconnected thing, which makes for interesting diner conversations, but it is terrible for the deep focus you need to do work like writing. Benefit number 14, save money at Rockford Roasting Company. 15, save money at Meg's Daily Grind. 16, save money at Costco. 17, save money at Dunkin' Donuts. 18, save time by not having to make coffee in the middle of the workday. 19, not laying awake in bed, mind racing because I drank caffeine too late.
I need you to try it.
Oh, you need to try. I thought you were going to say you need. Oh, that's really good.
Give me your mind for you.
Okay.
It's world famous.
Yeah, that's good.
I had a tiny bit of caffeine last night. That is, last night as of writing this script. I'm talking probably 10 milligrams, and my mind was racing. I couldn't stop thinking about something someone was trying to prove to me that was nonsense in my mind. They were trying to say that food is good and bad. Like there is good food and there is bad food. But they agreed that it depended on the situation. They agreed that any given food could be good or bad depending on the situation. But they wouldn't agree that this means any given food isn't good or bad in and of itself, but that it depends on the situation. I only bring this up to illustrate the frantic mind wandering my brain does on caffeine. Had I not used caffeine, would I have experienced this frantic brain splather?
What, you gotta get the Coke with it? Wrong. Do Coca-Cola cans look like this these days?
Oh, it's special. It's the original taste. That's living right there.
Benefit number 20, living an alternative lifestyle. 21, people want to talk to you about it. 22, feel proud of something you accomplished for once in your life. 23, save my mom money by not drinking too many pods. 24, not have to depend on a drug to wake up in the morning. 25, not have to depend on a drug to have motivation to do work. 26, not have to depend on a drug to have motivation to work out. 27, my breath smells better. 28, my teeth are whiter. Probably. 29, I eat better. 30, I eat breakfast. Before I started using caffeine to wake myself up in the morning, I would always eat breakfast cereal. My favorite breakfast cereal was Reese's Puffs. My parents didn't want to get us Reese's Puffs because, for one, it seemed unhealthy to eat candy for breakfast, and two, it was more expensive than the other breakfast cereals. At least those are the reasons that I think they had for not wanting us kids to eat Reese's Puffs. When I look at Reese's Puffs today, it seems like a totally reasonable cereal. It has as many vitamins and minerals as any other sugary breakfast cereal. It costs $6 for a giant box, only $1 more than a giant box of Honey Nut Cheerios. It seems like a totally reasonable cereal. It seems like a totally reasonable cereal for a child or even an adult to eat every morning for breakfast. But I don't eat it. At least I don't eat it now. For one thing, it has 1 milligram of caffeine per serving. That seems like not much, but it would certainly mess up my no caffeine diet. But on the other hand, it only has 1 measly gram of dietary fiber. And because I can't rely on caffeine to have a BM, I need fiber. So for now, I've opted to eat the king of all fibrous breakfast cereals, Raisin Bran. And you may say that's not the king of fiber cereals. There are plenty of box brands that have more fiber. Well, you're right, but you'd be talking about Fiber One, All Brand Buds, High Fiber Original, super specialized stuff like that. They have more fiber, but they're not the king. Raisin Bran is the king. The point is, I eat breakfast now. And maybe in the future, when I'm off this crazy militant diet, I'll even eat Reese's Puffs. Benefit number 31. Save money when we go out to breakfast at a restaurant. 32. Save the environment by not using a gasoline-propelled vehicle to go get coffee from Starbucks. 33. Not having to get up to microwave my coffee in the middle of a project. 34. Not having to get up in the middle of my work a second time because for some reason my coffee has gone cold after 5 minutes. 35. Not having to buy an expensive coffee mug that keeps my coffee at the correct temperature. 36. Never buying a moderately priced coffee treat only to realize that they made it wrong.
All right, here we go. Let's ask Starbucks.
My wife used to love this drink that Starbucks had called the Starbucks Double Shot on Ice. I'll tell you what it is, but first let me tell you what it isn't. A double shot on ice. If they made a double shot on ice, it wouldn't be the first time. The name is too deceptive. Don't accidentally get a double shot on ice. Make sure you get a Starbucks double shot on ice. One day, without warning, they took it off the menu. Now, baristas are panicking, asking other baristas, "Do you know what was in the Starbucks double shot on ice?" One barista finally let us in on the secret. It's a quad espresso over ice with milk and classic syrup. Getting this drink right has caused my family an inordinate amount of stress. My wife still gets a double shot on ice sometimes, but at least they can't mess up both of our drinks.
Hi, welcome to Starbucks. What can I do for you?
Hi, can I please have a quad espresso on ice in a grande cup with cream and 2 pumps classic?
Benefit number 37, not having to ask for a little bit more cream because the barista didn't put enough in. Benefit number 38, not having to ask what's the difference between a cortado and a cafe au lait again. I've never actually asked that specific question, but one time I went to a hipster bicycle coffee bar and ordered a macchiato. That place had lots of good-looking coffee and espresso and all the bikes, and I just got carried away in the atmosphere, and I didn't know what half the things on the menu were, but I'd heard of a macchiato before, so I ordered it. I was expecting a regular-sized coffee drink since I normally frequent coffee stores with American sizes. I was extremely surprised when they brought out an itsy-bitsy cup. I chugged it in 2 seconds. I should have known why this drink was so inexpensive. I wanted more coffee, but I was too prideful to admit that I hadn't known what a macchiato was when I had ordered it. On the other hand, the person serving you may not even know the difference. My wife once ordered an iced coffee, and the barista told her that it didn't have any iced coffee left, so she offered to pour espresso over ice for her. My wife accepted, and the barista brought out this massive cup of like 8 or 10 shots of espresso. This barista thought 10 shots of espresso on ice would be comparable to a drink of 1 iced coffee. I mean, that would be some strong iced coffee.
Hi.
This is a video from the very day that I ordered the tiny coffee drink. My wife and I walked around the town that day. Throughout the day, I was taking video that I would later cut together into a sort of vlog of the trip. This was probably my first experience vlogging, although I didn't know what it was called or that it was an entire genre of YouTubing back then. I attached a mini DV wide-angle lens to my white iPhone C and planned to film spontaneous moments throughout the day. All of the hullabaloo of trying to film and make a good video out of this day probably led me to make a not-so-intelligent coffee order. I never ended up getting that good cup of joe that I so desired, but I did meet these 2 guys named Rick.
Ricks today. Check these guys out. This guy, say your name. Rick. What's your name? Eric. So we got 2 new Ricks, guys. You know, believe it or not, it's 2 new Ricks.
Benefit number 39, save the environment by not making them use more fossil fuels to ship yet another bag of beans halfway around the globe. Okay, obviously, it's not as simple as this. Global trade is probably a good thing, although I'm not an expert by any means. 40. Saving money on home improvements because while my mom may have gotten me a gift card to a coffee shop, instead she got me a gift card to Home Depot for my birthday. 41. I'm excited about what I'm really excited about and not what I just happened to be fixated on 30 minutes after drinking caffeine. 42. Remembering what it's like to be a kid again, waking up and not instantly needing a drug to get going. 43. Being able to share whatever I'm drinking with my jealous, curious 2-year-old daughter. Except alcohol. 44, not having to pretend that I like black coffee when everyone at the table has their coffee black and I don't want to be known as the sissy of the group. 45, not having to pretend to be nice to people before I've had my first cup of coffee in the morning. 46, not having to explain why I have edible drugs, legal edible drugs, in a little plastic bag in my pocket when I'm going to a concert. My wife and I were staying at an Airbnb in Chicago. It was January, but it was warm for January. We walked around everywhere. We noticed a poster for a rap concert that was going to be happening later that evening in a record store. It was in a concert hall across town. We took the train to the closest stop and had to ride bikes another mile across a terrifying bridge and through an ominous tunnel in order to get to this concert. We made it there by the skin of our teeth. At the concert door, they checked us to make sure there was no funny business. There was funny business. I didn't bring much to prepare for this journey to this concert venue. I brought my camera, my wallet, my phone, and 2 caffeine-infused gummy snacks. The gummy snacks were a problem for security. They make lots of these gummy snacks. Gummy Shot Energy Gummies, Punched Energy, Mocha Shots, Hilo Energize. The packaging makes it clear that although these gummies do contain a drug, it is a legal drug. My problem was, I didn't have the packaging. All I had was 2 rectangular cuboid gummies in a small fold-top plastic bag. When questioned about the nefarious-looking substance, I froze. I couldn't think of the word for caffeine. It's like that thing, you know. You know what it is. My wife, who had already made it through the security, came back to save me. It's caffeine. It's just caffeine. They let us through with the gummies. Even though I was shook by this encounter, it was a very good concert. Maybe the best I've ever been to. Benefit number 47, not having to drink a horrible tasting instant coffee when I'm camping. Benefit number 48, saving the environment by not using disposable coffee cups. 49, save the environment by not using non-biodegradable coffee pods. 50, you don't spill coffee on yourself when driving. 51, you don't spill coffee all over yourself the second you rush out the door because you're late for work. This happened to me one time. I was totally going to be late for work. I didn't wake up in time to get out of the door fast enough, so I quickly got dressed, made coffee, and ran out of the door, where I tripped on the doormat and spilled coffee all over the front of my shirt. I had no time to get coffee. I changed my shirt, and I left for work. That was a bad start to the day. Quite possibly the worst start to any day I've ever had. But it got better. I think Kristen brought coffee to me at work that day.
You want to try this last one?
Yes, I do. This
Okay.
is just straight up decaffeinated coffee.
To me, that's coffee. That's what it's meant to be.
That is coffee.
That's-
Yeah, I mean, I just
Like the other
drank
one's not-
a bunch of that today.
Yeah, there's no competition between like the chicory root and real coffee. Like it's not even close. But how does it compare to like a caffeinated coffee?
So I went to Panera twice today for coffee, and once at like 8:30, and then once at 2:30. I would actually put this up against any of that stuff, or any like any of my frequent diner spots. Like this tastes like diner coffee, and diner coffee, like good diner coffee.
I can hear someone objecting, but Patty, this is a list of deeply personal, specific things. This isn't 51 reasons to quit caffeine. These are consequential events that you and only you experienced, and therefore don't amount to anything more than anecdotes. In other words, you, Patty, are just telling a story. Well, for all of you naysayers who are wondering how these stories could possibly apply to anyone other than me, I've categorized all of the benefits into 6 universal categories of benefits. Mental benefits, physical benefits, personal finance benefits, you don't have to drink coffee benefits, social environmental benefits, and pride benefits. Mental benefits. The mental benefits include things such as having a consistent energy for various tasks, having less anxiety about projects I'm working on, and interestingly, being more focused on the task at hand. This is interesting because many people have found that quitting caffeine has the opposite effect. Michael Pollan wrote about his experience quitting caffeine, and he wrote this: "Things on the periphery intrude and won't be ignored. I can't focus for more than a minute. Is this what it's like to have ADD?" I can't stress enough that my experience is the complete opposite of Michael's and what many others like Michael say. I think this underscores the fact that every body is different and the effect that caffeine and its withdrawal have on the body are going to be different from person to person. To further illustrate this point, I once got for Halloween a pack of Wrigley's Big Red chewing gum. This was not the small 5-stick pack, nor was it the wide 15-pack. No, this was the honker. The 17-stick chewing gum pack that was so huge in a preteen's pocket, it almost looked like it could be a pack of squares. This was a heck of a score for a Halloween haul. Maybe it came from someone who worked at the gum factory in town, but regardless of how it came into my possession, it did come into my possession, and I devoured all but 2 pieces in a single evening. The next morning, after waking up from my sugar-induced coma, I felt something funny going on in my mouth. I went to the bathroom mirror and was shocked to see that my tongue had swollen to the size of a toddler's fist. I couldn't speak right for a week. I never finished that pack. However, a friend of mine did finish the pack for me, and his tongue didn't swell up at all. To this day, I don't get near Red Hots or Atomic Fireball Jawbreakers. I only watch as other people enjoy them blissfully, fearlessly. Their bodies react differently to artificially flavored cinnamon candy than mine does. The physical benefits. The physical benefits of quitting caffeine include things like having a regular BM without having the help of a drug, breath smells better, and getting rid of back pain. I don't want to jinx it, but since I've quit using caffeine, I've been able to run without having back pain.
So, before I was off caffeine, when I was using it, I would have pain in my lower back.
A few months ago, I made this video where I say I'm going to try and run since I don't have back pain. Could caffeine have been causing pain in my back so much that I wouldn't be able to run?
Now I wonder, can I run?
I have been running pretty frequently to test this theory, and I haven't yet had back pain since I've started. The last time that was true was before I started using caffeine in high school. Every day I would get up and run 2.5 miles on a treadmill. Ultimately, I don't know if this is because of quitting caffeine or some other mysterious reason. In any case, I'm glad to be able to run again. The personal finance benefit. When I was writing down all of the benefits that I could think of for quitting caffeine, I wrote down a lot of places where I save money. In the months that I've been refraining from using caffeine, my family has spent an average of $34.06 per month on going out and buying coffee. In the month prior to my quitting caffeine, we spent $81.08. That's over double the amount we spend on average every month now. Is it fair to say that the average we spend would be double if I was using caffeine? Probably not, but it certainly would be higher. This, however, is more than just a personal finance benefit. It's about anti-consumerism. Our society is focused on consumption. Buy this thing, buy that thing, and it'll make you happy. In being decidedly against something that is a quick fix, I can instead focus on the underlying reasons why I need to be fixed in the first place. Sometimes I get into a rut with my work and I get fixated on not what I need to do to actually overcome the challenge that is in front of me, but instead I'll fixate on what I don't have, whether that be coffee or a better computer, some consumer product that if I could just have that one thing, my problem would fix itself. But the problem with this theory is that this is a lie. Caffeine doesn't solve any problems for you. It may be a quick fix to make you forget about your problem for a moment, but it doesn't get rid of the problem. the problem doesn't go away. Consumerism doesn't deliver anything that it promises. The you don't have to drink coffee benefit. Sometimes you just don't want to drink coffee, but you have to because you need the caffeine. There are other instances when this benefit occurs, but in keeping with the first 51 benefits that I could think of, I only listed this one. You'll have to use your imagination to figure out the rest. Social and environmental benefits. People have often touted that caffeine has a social benefit, but it has a social cost too. Everything that has a benefit also has a cost. The social cost you pay for using caffeine is the social benefit you gain by not using it. The benefit of using caffeine might be that you get to know and become acquainted with your favorite local barista, but the cost of that is that you might be more hesitant to point out that your coffee has been made wrong if the one who made it is your friend. For myself, a social situation that is muddied by the use or non-use of caffeine is going to my parents' house. My mom likes to be very hospitable. She likes to provide for me and my siblings as any kind host would. Part of her hospitality is letting us use her Nespresso and all of her Nespresso pods. Since I, at this time, do not consume caffeine, I don't have to incur the cost of every Nespresso pod I would otherwise have consumed onto my mom. However, as much as it is a good thing to not make my mom spend more money on her children than is necessary, I also understand that turning down hospitality can be rude and even insulting to the one who is offering it. I don't want to be a blessing blocker. So to be fair, as much as this is a social benefit, it's also a social cost of not using caffeine. The pride benefit. Is it bad that I'm proud to be caffeine free? I'm proud to be one of the 7% of Americans who, when receiving an anonymous survey, will be able to check the box for none when asked how much caffeine I consume on a daily basis. I feel a little bit superior when I see a traffic jam causing line coming all the way out of the Starbucks drive-thru, jutting out into the adjacent street. I feel just a little sense of accomplishment when someone asks me, "Are you still not drinking coffee?" And I get to say to them, "No, I'm not." Or better yet, they ask me if I want any coffee, and I'll say, "I'll have none." To which they respond, "Wait, are you still off caffeine? How long has it been?" It makes me feel just a little sense of contribution to our society by adding to the self-conducted research, trying to answer the age-old question, is it possible to live and thrive in a society without using caffeine? Is it wrong to feel proud that everyone I know is living in a certain frame of understanding and I've successfully broken free from that understanding of reality? I have taken the proverbial red pill, and though life out here is not easy, I have found that it does exist, and sometimes it even thrives. Is it wrong to be proud of that? Well, I admit that maybe it's a little messed up. I admit that it's a little messed up to be proud of essentially other people's misery. Even if it is a little messed up, I'm still proud to be a non-caffeinated American. To me, nothing comes close to what coffee is. I never even tried to replace it. I did try to replace it. I tried to replace it. This is horrible, but I had honey chamomile tea. Okay, and I went back to sleep immediately.
Yeah, I've thought about this also recently because of my coffee consumption and how ridiculous it is.
It sounds ridiculous.
It's pretty crazy. So I was thinking about weaning off, getting a pour over, doing one good cup of coffee in the morning.
Okay.
And then if I need that boost, getting white tea.
Yeah, white tea.
So
is it low caffeine?
Yeah, I think it's low caffeine.
Is it like green tea? I don't really know what white tea is.
White tea is a baby tea leaf, and I know that because of a Lipton commercial from the 2000s.
The baby tea leaf.
And why still has naturally life fever with pumpkin.
Despite all the upsides to not using caffeine, the 51 upsides to not using caffeine, there is one downside that I can't ignore. If you don't use caffeine, then you can't drink coffee. And I love coffee. I love the smell of it. I love the taste of it. It reminds me of the honeymoon days of my marriage, living in that 750 square foot apartment, making Cameron's coffee in our brand new Hamilton Beach Black Switch coffee maker. There really isn't a substance that can replace it, and decaf coffee has caffeine too. For that reason alone, I have to deduct points from my overall rating for this review. I considered giving this experience 2.1 stars. That is to say that this experience is, in the most small and inconsequential way, basically good. But I wasn't considering one other thing that I had to rate. Coffee. Before I can rate this experience of giving up caffeine for 6 months, I have to rate coffee itself. And this is the key to understanding the rating that this experience must receive. Coffee itself is certainly not bad. It is undoubtedly not so middle of the road, so blah, that it deserves a 2-star rating. No. In order to understand the rating that going without caffeine for 6 months must receive, we have to understand that coffee is good. Coffee is biblically good. By no means can I prove this, but just by merely considering how good and tasty coffee is, I think it is a fair guess to say that coffee was one of those trees in the Garden of Eden, one of those trees that Adam and Eve were told to eat of, one of those trees that God looked on after 7 days and said, "This, my very own creation, is good." So you see, the rating for giving up caffeine out of 3 stars has to be 1.9 stars. Since coffee is good, getting totally off coffee is, although not utterly vile, at least it is in the very most basic and inconsequential way bad. It is not a totally nondescript experience. It is, in the smallest sense, just a little bit bad, not super bad. It has its benefits, but to deprive yourself of something that is so fundamentally good is no self-control at all. It is slightly masochistic. It is the worst manifestation of stoicism. It is cloisterism gone too far. Even Jesus turned water into wine. We are not all meant to be Levites. We are not surely all meant to be St. John the Baptist eating nothing but locusts and wild honey in the wilderness. Sometimes, when we're given something so good, we are simply meant to enjoy it. And yet, with all the benefits to quitting caffeine and all the goodness that is coffee, I still never adequately answered the question, why even do this in the first place? I never had a real answer to this question. Sometimes I would say that I felt like I was too addicted to the drug. Sometimes I would say that I just wanted to write an interesting video and thought this would be a good subject matter. It wasn't until a few weeks ago that I actually realized the true reason I wanted to give up caffeine. The reason is, I wanted to be radically unattached. In the Netflix movie Stutz, Jonah Hill talks with his psychiatrist about radical unattachment. To quote Stutz, non-attachment says, I can go for this thing, I can work as hard as I want to on it, but I am also willing to not have it. It reminded me of two things that may seem weirdly unrelated. My dog Boozer and the Apostle Paul. This is my dog Boozer. 3 years ago, we found out that he had a tumor in his bladder. For a year, We tried to give him a medicine that has helped a small percentage of dogs to get better. We hoped and prayed that Boozer would be one of the lucky few. But he wasn't. We had to put him down a year later on my birthday. I learned at that time how hard it is to lose something you truly love. I was not good at it. The Apostle Paul talked about loss in a different way. He said he learned the secret to being content, whether he was hungry or well-fed, whether he had everything or he was at a loss. He could still be content because of him who gave him strength. He was talking about supernatural strength. Strength from Jesus, he was talking about. Strength to be strong even when he lost something so precious to him. I didn't have that strength when I lost Boozer. I want to have that supernatural strength. I want to be radically unattached. Maybe that's why subconsciously I wanted to give up caffeine. I didn't care about being addicted to a drug. I never really cared that much about saving the money. I wanted to be like Paul. I wanted to be like Stutz and Jonah Hill. I wanted to learn to be less attached.
Test, test. Hello! You made it to the end of the video. This is the end. This is the end. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say. This is the end. And, if you wanted there to be more video, there is. This is the ending of the video. It's going to be a long ending. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks for listening to it. Maybe you're listening to it in your headphones. Yeah, whatever you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's great. I don't know. I don't know if this video may or may not do well on YouTube. It's a long video. It's not a typical YouTube video. It's weird. It's different. I'm different. I'm built different. And so this basically it's very, very important, very extremely important that you like it and subscribe to this channel and share it with one sibling or relative, close relative, possibly a mom, or I'm seeing a cousin. Share it with a cousin. Share it with one of your close cousins who you've lost contact with and you want to reestablish a connection with based on a non-caffeine consumption, perhaps, or caffeine consumption, perhaps. I don't know. Share it with your cousin. Like the video. Comment on the video. And in the comments section, please be civil. Let's have a nice conversation there. Let's have some fun conversation. Let's talk about caffeine. Are you on caffeine? Are you off caffeine? I'm still off caffeine. I would like to get back on caffeine. You may think I am on caffeine. In fact, in the last video, someone said it looks like I'm on caffeine right now as I'm making this video and editing this video, and it probably looks like I'm on caffeine right now. I'm not. I just did like 50 jumping jacks right there, and some other people said that they were annoyed. They were annoyed at how many things that I listed for caffeine products. Well, let me tell you something, buddy. I was annoyed at how many caffeine products there are. That's the point. Yeah, I appreciate hearing about your annoyances about the videos. Tell me what you're annoyed about with this video. I'm sure there's plenty of things to be annoyed about. Let's gripe about it in the comment section, but be civil. I don't want to have anybody name calling. No name calling. Some people said that it seemed like I was copying someone called Chubby Emu. Someone said I was like the Bubba. I was like copying someone named Bubba. I don't know who those people are. They probably have similar influences to me. I have a lot of influences. I'm talking a lot of influences. I've been making videos for over 25 years. My dad started helping us making videos when I was like, 4 years old. And we started by just copying the Power Rangers movie, the Ivan Ooze Power Rangers. We just straight up copied it. That would still be one of the influences that I have to this day. Then we copied the Lord of the Rings. We actually straight up used the entire Lord of the Rings soundtrack to make our own version of the Lord of the Rings. Peter Jackson. Yeah, we probably have similar influences. That's probably the case. There was a lot of talk in the comments of the last video in this caffeine series about retention time, views, view count, blow up, recommended, algorithm, views, trending, all this kind of, this is YouTube jargon. You realize that? You realize what you're talking about is YouTube jargon. It's just jargon. It doesn't mean it's nebulously defined. It doesn't really, these things aren't really important. They don't really matter, but I can see that they matter to a lot of people. A lot of people are talking about this kind of stuff in the comments. So, do whatever it takes. Get this video to get a lot of views, a lot of likes, share it out, put it somewhere, put it on Twitter. Does anyone have Twitter? Put this on Twitter. I don't know. Thank you to Jim, my friend Jim. He did some of the parts of this video that were in this video. We filmed some other parts too. We filmed some stuff where we were like commenting on footage that I was going to use as part of the cuts between different scenes, but I never ended up using it because it was too hard to try to edit it and make it look good. Because what happened was that my hard drive is totally full of stuff that I'm using for this film, and I don't want to reorganize stuff, and I can't afford to buy another hard drive, so I just decided, let's not do that. Let's finish the video. Let's have a final product here, and let's move on with our lives, and let's go on to the next video. I want to thank Kristen and Ethel. That is my wife and my daughter. They were in this video a lot, and I couldn't do this. I couldn't do any of these videos without them. They really support me. They help me. Yeah. Love you guys. Oh, another thing that I was gonna put on in this video is I was gonna write out what I was gonna do an experience where I write out 500 words off caffeine and then try to do it on caffeine and see which one I could do faster and better to prove that I'm more focused off caffeine, but I didn't do that at all. I thought that this would be too scientific of a research project for this kind of video, and that also reminds me when I told my brother Kyle, by the way, thank you to Kyle. He helps me out with all my films, and even just thinking about them. And we made a film. It was in a film festival recently. I told him that I was about to finish this film, and he was like, oh yeah, so it's gonna be like, you're gonna have a lot of science stuff in there. You're gonna talk about all the science of coffee and the caffeine. And I was like, no, not at all. So, so yeah, if you were expecting this to be like a full like scientific lecture and all this kind of like very deep scientifical things, yeah, I'm sorry that this is not that at all. Not at all. I didn't even do the one science experiment that I planned to do. And that was just because I was like, I just want to be done with this video. Yeah, sorry it's not very scientific. Also, that reminds me, my friend Matt, I told him that I was about to be done with this video. And I told him that it was going to be like an hour long. And he was like, oh yeah, so are you going to try to cut it down to be shorter? And I was like, no. I have done that before. I've cut down videos and I've been like, this is going to be really short. This is going to be a really, really short and concise video. And I could have done that. I could have done that for this video. Maybe it would be better. I don't know. I just decided to make an hour-long video about quitting caffeine for 6 months. Maybe you can tell me in the comments if that's nice for you or if you hated it. Yeah, whatever. Tell me. Lastly, I have more ideas for reviews of things that I would like to do, and I told a friend of mine that I wanted to do some reviews on YouTube, and he was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. I love reviews. You should do a video about the best Christmas gifts to buy." And I was like, what? Are you talking to me? That's not what I meant by reviews. But, so like, if you've watched this video, then you kind of know what I mean by a review. I have some other ideas. Let me read them to you. So all of these would be similar videos to this one. They would be sort of long form reviews of things that I have experience with. I don't have experience with like technology products. I don't have experience or access to countries or people or, you know, weird jobs. Well, maybe weird jobs. But anyways, here's my ideas. Quitting my job. My review of quitting my job. I'm just trying to think of ideas where I think that I have enough stories around this idea to make it into sort of like a long essay that comes to some kind of conclusion about this thing, okay? Home ownership. I've been a homeowner now for like 5 years. I would like to review that. I think that there's a lot of hatred being spewed about home ownership. And I like my house. I own it. How about my review of playing video games after not playing video games for 10 years? My review of McDonald's. I've eaten a lot of McDonald's for 30 years. Now I know that that's different. People have reviewed McDonald's and their food, but I think that mine would be different. I don't know. I think mine would be different. My review of working from home. My review of rescuing dogs. My review of pizza. I've done a lot of videos about pizza with my friend Jim. He was in this video. We've done some videos about pizza before. My review of Toyota Corollas. Maybe I could come up with a video for that. How about my review of the Lumix G7, the Panasonic Lumix G7. It's a camera. I don't know. It's an old camera. I still like it. I still use it. My review of fatherhood. My review of friendship. My review of bookstores. I worked in a bookstore before. How about my review of suburbs? I live in a plain old city, but there's suburbs around here. And my cousin lived in a suburb. Anyways, I could review suburbs. People are trashy in suburbs. I could review them. My review of Coca-Cola. Huh? My review of frozen pizza. My review of the iPod. Oh, I thought that could be good. I had like the first iPod Shuffle, and they just discontinued the iPod. It's done now. It's over. There's no more iPods. And so I thought, let me take a look at all the stories about iPods that I can think of. Okay, here's something different. I could review Twitter. I've never used Twitter, but what if I got on there and then now used Twitter and then reviewed it? Because not a lot of people have an experience like me where I haven't used it. I mean, maybe a lot of people do probably, but not a lot of people would then review it. My review in the same way, my review of Snapchat, same thing. I never had Snapchat. My review of selfies. You know, selfies. Okay, I just saw a Vsauce video about the first selfie ever. That was really good. I loved it. I don't want to copy him at all. My review is just would be totally like personal. It's like this review, the one that you just watched. Okay, that's it. That's all my ideas. If any of those ideas sound like maybe they would be good, I don't know. Comment below. Say that you want to see that review. If not, then just, that's okay. It's not for everybody. Thanks for watching.